What if I told you there was a man so wealthy that his generosity literally crashed an entire economy? Not a Wall Street tycoon, not a Silicon Valley founder, a king from West Africa whose name, in his own lifetime, rippled from the Sahara to the Mediterranean, until cartographers in Europe drew him on their maps holding a solid gold orb, as if wealth itself answered to him. Imagine a fortune so vast that modern writers still struggle to count it. More than gold piles and glittering trinkets, this was wealth as power. Mines, trade routes, cities. By some estimates, his command of resources would rival or surpass what Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates combined represent in our world. Relative to his age's economy, a concentration of value that could bend prices in a cosmopolitan capital 2,000 miles from his throne. And yet, his greatest legacy wasn't a vault. It was a vision of faith, of learning, of a city in the desert that would become a beacon to scholars for centuries. In 1324, this emperor gathered a caravan so grand it looked like an army of silk and sand and set off across the Sahara. 10,000 hooves churning dust, camels groaning under the weight of bullion, heralds with staffs of gold. Rumors traveled ahead of him, a monarch whose charity fell like rain in a drought. When he reached Cairo, the city gasped. Then the markets buckled. But this isn't just a story about money. It's a story about an empire of 400,000 square miles, about the control of nearly half the old world's gold, and about the city of Timbuktu rising from a desert crossroads to an intellectual capital with thousands of students and hundreds of thousands of manuscripts. It's a story with triumphs and shadows, faith, brilliance, exploitation, and decline. In 1324, a king from West Africa embarked on a journey that would change the world forever. This is the story of Mansa Musa, the richest person who ever lived. 1312. The throne of Mali passes to a man from the Keita line, Musa, 9th Mansa, emperor of a realm already rich but poised to become a superpower. What he inherits is extraordinary. Cities hugging the Niger Bend, provinces pledging tribute, a lattice of markets stretching from the Atlantic's mangroves to the hard salt flats of Tagaza and beyond. Under Musa, it coheres into something else: scale. How big? By the mid-14th century, Mali covered roughly 1.1 million square kilometers, just over 400,000 square miles, a quilt of savanna, river delta, and desert corridor binding together peoples, languages, and faiths. To the north lay Walata and Tuat, Saharan gateways. To the east, Gao. To the west, the Atlantic coast. In a Europe counting winter grain and clipped by local famine, West Africa's inland empire looked impossibly vast. Where did the money come from? Gold. For centuries, West African deposits, Bambouk, Bure, Boure, Galam, fed Mediterranean markets. By the early 1300s, Mali's sphere was responsible for almost half of the Old World's exported gold, funneling through trans-Saharan routes to Tunis, Cairo, and on into Europe's mints. Salt, white gold from Tagaza, moved south. Gold dust and slaves moved north. Ideas moved both ways. Musa's officials taxed every ounce crossing his borders. Every caravan was a revenue stream. Every oasis, a toll gate. Contrast it. While European kings counted silver coins, Mansa Musa's treasurers weighed ingots. While some European towns strained to rebuild after plague and war, and earlier after harvest failures, northern merchants whispered about the Black King of Mali, whose treasury overflowed with gold bars. Not metaphor, but inventory. Musa's court didn't just store wealth, It regulated the arteries of trade. His scribes and tax collectors could set policy and watch it echo across deserts. Numbers pull it into focus. Picture camel trains, hundreds of animals laden with salt and textiles southbound, returning north with sacks of gold dust. Picture ports of trade where Malian agents kept scales calibrated and taxes clear. As one medieval observer put it, they keep the cores of the pure metal, the rest goes to market, an early hint at state-controlled reserves and currency management. Mali's system was old-school central banking, without the banks, society and state. The Mansa presided over a council of nobles and governors, backed by cavalry in the open savannas and river flotillas on the Niger. Islam, long present among traders and elites, gives the state a cosmopolitan gloss. Qadis adjudicate disputes. Merchants write letters in Arabic to partners in Fez and Cairo. But this is Mali's Islam, layered over local tradition, pragmatic, powerful, confident. Why it mattered? Control of routes mattered as much as control of minds. Mali's strength came from being the middleman of a world hungry for West African gold, just as it had been for Ghana before it. The empire's sovereignty was more than lines on a map. It was leverage. Set the tax, patrol the road, keep the peace. Musa ascends at exactly the moment when copper from the Sahara, salt from the desert, grain from the floodplains, and gold from the forests could be braided into one imperial economy. And yet, to understand Musa, you have to understand scale in human terms. Think of workshops where smiths hammer copper into bracelets and goldsmiths spin dust into prestige. Think of markets, Timbuktu, Gao, where dyers turn cloth the color of night and scribes trade parchment and ink. Think of a court where news arrives faster than caravans, carried by reputation. That reputation is about to explode. The decision. The Hajj, the fifth pillar of Islam, called every capable believer to Mecca at least once. For Musa, the pilgrimage was not only devotion, it was diplomacy. It would announce Mali to the heart of the Muslim world and cement ties with scholars, jurists, and sultans. But for a king of Mali, going to Mecca wasn't a private vow. It was a state project, the preparation. A route is chosen, Niani, the imperial heartland, Walata, an old Ghanaian gateway, Tuat, oases in the central Sahara, Cairo, the Mamluk capital, Mecca. 4,000 miles, much of it across lands where water is the ultimate currency. Months of provisioning precede departure. Grain for men, fodder for animals, skins for water, tents for shade, guards for protection, heralds for order, and above all gold, both for expenses and for generosity. The caravan. Accounts differ. Medieval sources often do. Some say 60,000 people, including thousands of soldiers. Some say 8,000 to 12,000 courtiers, servants, and officials. But on one point they agree. The spectacle was staggering. Hundreds of camels, often described as 80 to 100, each carrying around 300 pounds, 136 kilograms, of gold dust or ingots. Heralds in silk organizing the procession, slaves and servants in brocade and fine cloth, and horses draped with red and gold standards. Imagine a file of people so long it took hours to pass a single dune. What does that much gold look like? Even a conservative reading, 8 to 12 tons, is enough to overwhelm a medieval market. Not because gold was unknown in Cairo or Mecca, but because sudden supply shocks rattle any economy. Think of gold as both money and metal. When too much arrives, its price falls. That's a problem if you own gold, and an opportunity if you borrow in gold and pay back later at a discount. Musa will learn this lesson the hard way. Across the desert, cue heat shimmer horizons, camel bells cutting the wind, silk banners snapping like sparks. At every well, the math is life and death. How many skins filled? How many animals watered? How long to the next source? Nights are colder than expected. Days are merciless, but the caravan is organized with military precision. There are prayer stops too. Friday congregational prayers led under makeshift awnings strung between lances, a foreshadowing of the mosques Musa will later commission. The Hajj's suffering embraced as devotion, and the caravan pushes on, into Egypt. News outruns the caravan. A black king from the lands of gold approaches with a moving city at his back. Cairo in 1324 is the metropolis of the Mamluk world, cosmopolitan, bureaucratic, proud. The Sultan, Al-Nasir Muhammad, rules from the citadel above a city of mosques, markets, and scholars. He has seen embassies before. He has never seen this, the human theater. When Musa's vanguard reaches the outskirts, they camp by the Giza pyramids, resting men and beasts. Then, in carefully rehearsed segments, the caravan crosses the Nile and enters Cairo. Imagine the colors: indigo cloth, crimson standards, gold staffs catching the sun. The sounds: drums, prayers, the murmuring of crowds, the smells: dates, dust, camel, perfume, motivation, and meaning. This is piety, yes, but it is also foreign policy. The pilgrimage is Musa's handshake with the Islamic world. He will meet jurists, commission scholars, and exchange gifts with the Sultan. He will also, very publicly, reward hospitality, patronize mosques, and give alms. The message is unmistakable. Mali is rich, Mali is devout, Mali belongs. Timeline. From departure to return, the journey lasts more than a year, 1,324 into 1,325, an arc of movement that redraws maps. Medieval geographers later place Mansa Musa on the famed Catalan Atlas, 1375, enthroned gold in hand, as if to say, "Here is the Mansa from the land where gold grows." Arrival, July 1324. The calendar notes a foreign prince with tents enough to be a temporary city. Musa meets Sultan al-Nasir Muhammad. Protocol is delicate. Accounts say Musa refuses to prostrate to the Sultan. He bows only to God. Tension melts into mutual respect, then into gifts. But it's what happens outside the palace that Cairo won't forget. Legendary generosity. Musa pours gold into Cairo's veins. Alms to the poor. Donations to mosques and scholars. Purchases at prices well above asking. He funds Friday worship, repairs endowments, and, if later reports can be believed, builds mosques along the route and act both pious and political. Cairo loves the spectacle. Merchants love it more. For a season, everyone is rich. Then the markets wobble. Gold is just another commodity when there's too much of it. Contemporary voices, Al-Umari, writing in Cairo within a decade of the events, are blunt. Musa's spending depressed gold's value in Egypt and caused its price to fall. Later chronicle traditions specify price points. Before Musa, a mythkal of gold traded at 25 dirhams of silver, after it sank to approximately 22 and stayed low for a dozen years. Think of 12 years of distorted prices in an economy tied to gold for long-distance trade and coinage. That's more than a bad season. That's policy by accident. Was it really 25%? Modern retellings often round the drop to a dramatic 25%. The primary source math suggests a decline closer to 12 to 15%, with the duration, a decade plus, doing the real damage. Either way, the effect is clear. Flood a market, and value falls. Musa's reputation is now myth, the king who made Cairo's gold cheap. Unintended consequences. The irony is exquisite. An emperor's charity inflicts inflation. His piety destabilizes prices. And the story takes another twist. As Musa continues to Mecca and back, the caravan overspends. Silk, grain, animals, lodging, multiplied by the tens of thousands, eat through the treasury. On the return through Cairo, sources report he borrows gold at high interest from merchants to cover costs and perhaps to soak up some of the surplus bullion he had unleashed. An empire that arrived showering gold leaves indebted, Cairo's moneylenders betting on Mali's ability to pay. Simple economics, cinematic collision. To Cairo's moneyed elite, Musa's visit is a windfall. Sell high, lend dear, collect later. To the poor, alms deliver relief, then rising prices bite. To the Sultan, it's diplomatic theater, a powerful Muslim monarch publicly acknowledging Cairo's prestige. To the chroniclers, it's a parable about wealth without measure. For Musa, it's a lesson. Wealth is power, but unmanaged wealth is risk. Home again, 1,325 to 1,326. Musa returns with more than stories. He brings scholars, jurists, architects, poets, bridges to the larger Islamic world. Among them, according to tradition, the Andalusi polymath Abu Ishaq al-Sahili, whose presence in Mali becomes a metaphor for the translation of ideas into architecture. Timbuktu's transformation. Once a desert entrepot, Timbuktu becomes Musa's project, a city of mosques and madrasas overlooking the Niger. In 1327, he commissions the Djinguereber Mosque, a masterpiece of Sudano-Sahelian design, ribbed with timber Turans and sculpted from earth. The result is both practical, cooling, repairable, and symbolic, Islam rooted in local materials. Over time, Musa's building and patronage helped Sankore become a center of learning, what later generations would call Africa's Oxford. How big was the learning? Figures are debated, as medieval figures often are, but a traditional estimate speaks of up to 25,000 students across Timbuktu's scholarly networks when they flowered in the centuries after Musa. An astonishing number for a desert city. Libraries multiply. Private collections and mosque libraries together preserve hundreds of thousands of manuscripts. Law, theology, poetry, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, commerce. A record of intellectual life that rebukes any myth of an Africa without writing. Conservative estimates speak of 300,000 texts. Other counts push the number toward 700,000 across Timbuktu and its satellite libraries. What does a manuscript city look like? Think courtyards where students recite under acacia shade, scholars arguing points of Maliki jurisprudence, astronomers charting stars above the Sahel, merchants commissioning contract manuals, scribes copying poetry with iron gall ink. Musa's greatest construction isn't only mud and timber, it's an ecosystem that attracts minds. The economy of knowledge. Sponsorship matters. Musa's endowment strengthened mosque schools where qadis train. Scholars from Cairo, Fez, and Granada circulate, bringing and taking ideas. The city's book trade becomes famous. Salt comes from the north, gold from the south. But the word of God and the treasures of wisdom are found in Timbuktu. The line is poetic, but the economy is real. Buying, copying, selling, teaching. That bookish economy will preserve a continent's past and need rescuing in our century when militants threaten it. In recent years, tens of thousands of manuscripts were digitized or smuggled to safety. Shipments have even begun to return to Timbuktu for preservation. legacy beyond stone. When Europe's universities were arguing scholastic logic, Timbuktu's scholars debated law and commerce. When courts elsewhere minted prestige, Musa minted reputation, paraded in the Catalan Atlas as a sovereign of gold and learning. The caravans still mattered, but now Mali's power expressed itself in libraries as well as levies. The headline claim, you've seen the graphics, $400 to $500 billion in today's dollars. It's a way to grasp the ungraspable. And yet, historical wealth is a tricky calculus. Land, labor, monopoly over resources, control of trade routes, these don't convert cleanly into modern net worth. Still, we can sketch. Modern yardsticks. Today's titans, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, are tracked in real time as stocks rise and fall. In 2025, reputable trackers, Forbes, Bloomberg, have pegged Musk at the unthinkable, around $500 billion at peak, new records driven by tech valuations. Bezos and Gates orbit far below that, though still in the stratosphere. Even so, think about Rockefeller. Measured against the U.S. economy of his time, his wealth can be framed as $400 billion plus in 2025 GDP terms, among the greatest of the modern era. And Musa, he didn't own shares, he commanded production. For a pivotal slice of the 14th century, Mali's sphere supplied nearly half of the Old World's gold exports. He taxed salt, copper, cola, and the caravans themselves. He could redirect trade routes with a garrison and endow cities with a signature. Translate that concentration of physical and political capital into today's metaphors, and you are forced into the hundreds of billions to approximate the leverage he held. Many popular summaries land on 400 to 500 billion. Speculative, yes, but trying to honor the scope. The safer verdict from historians, incalculable but unrivaled. Why he was richer, monopoly/near monopoly. Mali controlled the places where gold came out of the ground and the roads it traveled. No competition. His regional rivals couldn't match Mali's mines plus roots combination. Absolute power. He wasn't a CEO subject to a board. He was sovereign, taxation, tribute, military. This is why people say, perhaps more precisely, relative to his world's economy, Mansa Musa's personal command of value, what he could spend and influence, outstrips any modern billionaire's share. And there's the other test, impact. How many living billionaires can walk into a foreign capital and move prices for the decade? Musa did. The caution. If you love numbers, keep both truths in your head. Raw inflation-adjusted dollars are blunt instruments, and yet comparisons help us feel the magnitude. Best to say, in the ledger of history, Mansa Musa stands at or near the very top. The legend persists because the substance supports it. Power's price. Empires are engines. They consume labor and produce order. Mali's golden age ran on hierarchy, nobles, commoners, captives, and on systems of unfree labor embedded in Sahelian societies long before and long after Musa. In farms and courts, and in caravan logistics, slaves, often war captives and their descendants, were part of the machine. The mines. Medieval observers speak of gold fields at Bambouk and Bure feeding the trade. Extraction was small scale by modern standards, but enormous for its age. Alluvial panning, shallow shafts, seasonal labor. Conditions? There are no factory reports, only inferences. Hard manual work in heat, dust, and risk. Some laborers were free, some were not. Gold dust flowed up the chain into tribute, and tribute into state coffers. Trade in people. The trans-Saharan system did not only carry salt and gold, it carried humans, sold north in markets from Tunis to Cairo. Mali's elites used enslaved labor internally and exported captives externally, a practice that would shift in scale and brutality centuries later with Atlantic systems, but was already morally fraught. History is never black and white. The same empire that funded scholarship also profited from bondage. Inequality. Musa's caravan dazzles, but it also exposes the gap between court and countryside. In a subsistence economy, the concentration of wealth in metal and prestige goods could burden peasants with taxes and corvée. That doesn't erase Musa's achievements, but it complicates them. To tell the story honestly, we hold both visions: golden Timbuktu and grinding labor. The cost of empire building. Garrisons must be fed, roads must be patrolled, governors must be paid. Mali's cohesion depended on projecting force across a vast territory. That cost pushed Musa and his successors to keep the revenue fire hose open, tax the caravans, stabilize the routes, and maintain prestige. It worked until it didn't. An ending and a debate. Musa dies circa 1337 after roughly 25 years on the throne. Some sources give slightly earlier dates. Succession, so often an empire's soft underbelly, becomes a struggle. Short reigns, court intrigues. The empire still glitters, but hairline cracks widen. Shifting trade. Over the 1400s, forces beyond Mali's control begin to reroute the world. Portuguese mariners probe the West African coast, pioneering sea lanes that will, in time, siphon commerce from trans-Saharan corridors. In the inland north, Tuareg raids and new powers pressure Mali's borders. A new power rises. To the east, along the middle Niger, Songhai grows. In 1468, Sunni Ali takes Timbuktu, beginning a new imperial chapter whose wealth and extent may rival Mali's at its height. Mali remains a name to conjure with, but its days as West Africa's unchallenged hegemon fade. By the mid-1500s, its political weight has diminished. Yet the legacy endures. Timbuktu continues as a scholarly center for centuries, its libraries multiplying, its scholars writing chronicles like the Tariq al-Sudan. Musa's pilgrimage permanently put West Africa on world maps, literally. His golden portrait on the Catalan Atlas made him a medieval visual icon. Islam in the Western Sahel deepened and diversified, with Maliki jurisprudence and Sufi brotherhoods shaping civic life. The very manuscripts copied in Timbuktu, hundreds of thousands across the region, survive wars, neglect, and extremism, still being digitized and even returned to the city today. Bittersweet close. Empires end, ideas travel. Musa's gold stirred markets. His libraries outlasted kings. If you're looking for an arrow through time, follow the ink. From a king in West Africa to the richest person in history. From camel caravans blistering across the Sahara to a city of bookmen on the Niger. From the Taghaza salt mines and the Bambouk Beret goldfields to Cairo's startled markets and Mecca's holy precincts, Mansa Musa's story is not a footnote. It is a front page of the medieval world, the paradox. Here was a man so rich he crashed an economy, and yet his greatest legacy wasn't gold. It was knowledge. He poured resources into mosques and madrasas, harnessing faith to fuel a culture of learning that would echo for centuries in the libraries of Timbuktu. He showed that wealth, directed toward ideas, can outlast the very empires that mint it. Modern relevance. We live in an age obsessed with billionaires and tick-by-tick net worths. But Mansa Musa reminds us, True wealth isn't just what you have, it's what you build. Mines made him famous. Manuscripts made him immortal. Power measured in ingots is brittle. Power measured in mines endures. 700 years later, we still speak his name because he proved a lesson too many forget. Wealth without wisdom is just metal. Wealth with purpose can change the world. If you want more untold stories of history's greatest empires, subscribe to Empires Untold. Next week, we reveal the crippled prince who became the Lion King of Mali. Sundiata Keita's story is even more incredible. Which empire should we explore next? Tell us in the comments.